everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads, and today we are going to be featuring a new way to do the lives, which is going to give you the opportunity, which is really cool, that you will be able to actually see not only myself, but you will actually be able to also see my hands. So if you have questions that you are dying to know the answer to, not only can I hopefully answer them verbally, but I can also show you a little bit the examples of what you will be asking and looking for. So hello to Catherine there, one of the first people signing in. Keep in mind with these Facebook Lives, you can always go in and ask questions in the comments. You can share this feed. You can give it a little thumbs up. Let us know that you have questions, and hopefully we can have some answers for you and help you answer those questions as we're working in this Facebook Live for an hour to answer your questions, making you ultimately a better crafter and a better beader. The design of this Q&A is really for questions that may not be answered in some of the Facebook videos. So keep in mind, or some of the previous Facebook videos as well, and also some of the different YouTube videos. So if you keep in mind when you're looking at them, you can look and see the different videos, and there's questions and there's answers. Also keep in mind that we have a really awesome community of people that love to make jewelry, love the craft of making jewelry, and those people often answer in the questions that are going to be kind of on the side of your computer. When you look on the side in the little comments area, if I'm on your screen big, look in those comments and see, because a lot of times there's new questions or answers or other opinions that people may have for different products that they work with and different ways or solutions for your questions and your answers. Like previous episodes too, keep in mind that if you do share the video, you like the video, you give us a little comment, little shout out, you will get your chance to win as well. And one of the things that you are going to have a chance to win is some of our new Eva beads. So you want to keep in mind that the last time we gave out the round duo minis in the jewel color here. We also gave out some of the round duo minis last time as well. So this time you're going to get your chance to win some of our newest beads, which are our Eva beads here. So the cool thing with the Eva beads, they are a triangle, or a kind of triangular shaped bead, that they have that nice chevron shape. Unlike the Eva bead, the Eva beads are going to have that quality in them when you're looking, that they have the right angle. So when you're looking at the Eva bead versus the Eva bead, the Eva has that right angle where the Eva has more of a shorter degree there in the center of them. They're also smaller. And they really have led to some great designs. This design here was featured in one of our Facebook banners, as well as our ads. Right now we have, which is a great time to stock up, that you're looking at the different materials that you use. The number one thing that a lot of you use is going to be thread and needles. So check that out. Right now we have a sale going on basically your essential materials. So check that out if you haven't already. And that bracelet that I had just shown here, that is the hourglass bracelet that is in the ad for that, and the most recent YouTube video working with those new Eva beads as well. So to kind of start us out for the day, I wanted to touch on some of the questions that people had previously on the live, and I did not get a chance to answer them all last time. The clock really flew by, and I would love to talk with you more and talk with you longer, but I have to get kids off the bus that get off the bus really early. Their day starts really early, so I kind of have to end these quickly. But keep in mind, again, I do go back and try to make sure that these questions are answered in the next live, and they will bring you over to give us ideas and suggestions to get to you in the next feed as well. So also, in many of the things that I speak about and talk about, check out those comments again on the side, because the comments, generally we put links, and we work hard to go back during this video and put the links for that. So starting out with one of the questions from last time, we have, when we're looking at it here, so Kathy wanted to know, does it help to use beadwax on her thread for breaking issues? So thread that is not conditioned, again, we went over and we had kind of the idea of the conditioned thread versus that thermally bonded thread. So you'll have the thermally bonded thread like wildfire or fire line thread. they already have a conditioning on them. Sometimes you can use an extra conditioning, and that will help with a decrease in actually any knots that are going on or anything that you may get tangled. However, they're already thermally bonded, and making sure kind of those thermally bonded sections of that thread, you can wax them, but they already have a coating on them. They're designed with the coating, so that way your needle cannot penetrate. And I know that thin thread is really, really thin, but sometimes what can happen is that needle can actually penetrate on the actual thread when you're working with it. The thermally bonded thread, like Fireline or Wildfire, is going to reduce that. When you definitely want to use the beeswax is for a thread like Nymo. You can even use it with a KO thread, with a Sono thread, with a Miyuki thread, because those threads do not have a full conditioning on them. Will it help with the breakage? Yes and no. It's going to help more with the idea that those threads, because they are a group and a unit of thread, they can kind of get twisted, or they're twisted together. They'll break down a little bit and they will loosen a little bit as you're working with it. So yes, if you are using a thread that is not thermally bonded, even if it's composite, and keep in mind, Anna has an amazing blog on this, and then I actually did a Better Beater episode on this as well. So check that out when you're looking at the different Better Beater videos about the thermally bonded versus not thermally bonded. If it's not, definitely use with a wax. It's going to help reduce the amount of kind of kinks that you get, the amount of twists and turns, and also help to prevent the fraying of that thread. The number one thread that I was introduced to was Nymo thread. The Nymo thread is very, very hard to keep together. It frays very easily, and I want to make sure to use that conditioning. We have a beeswax that we have. Some of you may be lucky enough to have some of that, that Heaven thread conditioner that is now no longer produced, as well as, it sounds funny, but a natural material like Burt's Beeswax lip gloss, you can actually use that as your coating to cover and work with your thread. I wouldn't recommend using it then for actually your lips, kind of keep it for one or the other, mark the tube with a big X, or better yet, even if you take a strip of peyote, a kind of bigger version here, a lot of you will take a strip of peyote, and when you're looking at the strips of peyote, you will see those peyote strips. People do all kinds of fun things with them. So they will cover the needle cases, they'll cover pens with them. You can also cover your Burt's Bees or your lip balm, kind of new fun idea. And that way you know that that one is for beading and not for using on your lips. So keep in mind that you can do an actual coating for those when you're working on them. So thank you again to Kathy for that question, because I'm sure other people have that question as well. So Irma also wanted to know how much is a foot. So I'm not sure if you're speaking about how much is the Wildfire a foot or how much is the actual cording a foot. Most of the spools that we sell are going to be sold in either 125 yards or 50 yards. Keep in mind, approximately they're going to be 3 feet in a yard when you're working with them. So you really break it down that if you're spending $875, I believe, and you can get it on sale right now for that 50 yards. You get 150 feet when you're looking at that, and breaking that down, it's really inexpensive for projects. Now, some projects, yes, I posted actually in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, and I should stick this lovely necklace on. This necklace, which is a video that is coming up, you will get to see, but it still just completed it, so not yet. Some projects will use more thread than others. So this is a netted round, and it is a necklace, so it is a fairly long threading process. Because of that, it uses a lot of thread. I used about 25 feet of thread. However, grand scheme of things, still per foot, super inexpensive. It's really a really, really, really low cost point of your project, and you want to make sure that you have a quality thread or a quality project to work with. A foot, for those of you too that may be in Europe, when I speak feet, I really should change to meters and tell you to grab, a meter of thread, because it's such a more useful way of measurement. Feet is kind of a funny thing that we measure here in the US. But you're going to get 12 inches. Again, about 3 feet is going to be 1 meter for those of you looking at and kind of having that question as well. So the stretch cord not breaking. So Amy asked a little bit ago what my recommendation would be for stretch cord. I have a video that I'm working on right now actually with some stretch cord and looking at that. The stretch cord I prefer is going to be the Bead stretch, and the stretching, the elasticity or the stretch magic. There's also a stretch cord that is a lot of tiny pieces. It's called a floss. It works well for small beads, but I tend to use the largest type of stretchy string I can to go through the holes of my projects. Keep in mind, Amy, that anytime you use stretch, it's going to continue to stretch. That's what the design is, and that's how it's made and manufactured. So it's never permanent. You want to think of a lot of your stretch projects as after about a year of wear, go ahead and proactively and preactively really redo that stretchy bracelet, especially if it's one that you love. You don't want that to break down as you're working with it. So kind of working on here too. Hello to all of you out there as well. So that was for Kathy. Another one that I had that I thought that I should share with you was just a comment from one of our YouTube videos. So those of you just joining us live, I'm Allie with PotomacBeads and coming at you and answering questions. Sometimes you have questions right there in the comment feeds that you can ask and join in on this live and make it an interactive, awesome community. That's really what we love to do and engage in, and we wouldn't be putting all this work and effort into it if we didn't really love the outcome and seeing the energy and the creativity and just the desire to know more that all of you have. So I wanted to say that somebody had said and given the suggestion earlier that a lot of the different free gifts that we offer and a lot of the different samples that we send, she said she uses them as an added bonus, and that becomes stocking stuffers for friends that she has and for little offices. And if anyone asks her for donations, that she always uses those little extra free gifts. So I thought that was a fun idea, that you can gather and collect all of those earring kits that we send or the free strands, make things out of those and kind of pass them on as another little paying it forward sort of a thing. So I thought that was a fun suggestion that I just wanted to mention from another one as well. So another one here that I wanted to go with was, can you give me an idea what to do with some of your grab bags? So we had a number of different grab bags, and well, actually, you're the first people to kind of know this. We are going to be doing some other grab bags as well. We have a lot of products here at PotomacBeads that after 13 years of business, and being proactive, I will say, on my husband's part of bulk ordering. We have some really great products, but we just have tons of those great products. So we're going to be making more grab bags as well, and that's coming in the future for some things like gemstones and check glass. If you're not a member of our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, we asked this as a poll so we knew what you wanted and what you wanted to see and which type of grab bags it was going to be worth the effort for us to put together, because we want to make sure to really have something of quality and that you're wanting. And gemstones are coming up, so keep an eye on that as well. But those products too, those gemstones and the grab bags, the idea of them is not a particular project. Actually, one of the projects that I'm working on and that I'll show you was born from the actual grab bags. Here's some of the different things that were included in the grab bags, and I'll be sampling and showing later in a YouTube video exactly what to do with some of these. Making a charm bracelet. Many times you'll get maybe 2 beads, 2 maybe they'll match and 2 maybe they won't match. So you might have a couple beads in a very random color assortment. You may have some that are not, that it's just one of that item. I have 1 button, I have 1 clasp. Those different beads, as you're looking at them and making them, think of them, number 1, I say always look at everything as the potential to become earrings. Number 2, look at those color waves that were included in the grab bags and see how you can work and look at the different projects together. Keep in mind, and I mentioned this last time, that if you are a member or you subscribe to our YouTube channel, or even if you don't, at the very top of YouTube, there's the banner and the music starts to play if you go to YouTube/PotomacBeads. We'll put a link in the side too for you. So we'll get one of those in the little comments or commenting below, depending on when you're watching and how you're watching this live video feed. You can always search on our YouTube channel, specifically with a little magnifying glass, for the beads that were included in the kit. Many different projects that we do, even the earrings, which are again a little spotlight of something coming. Many of the projects that we do really only require, say, one button to end the actual piece. So you may only need one of something when you're looking at it. So if I need one cup button, perfect. I may have gotten one of those in my grab bags. So again, keep in mind, you can mix all of those things together and make it and get creative. We didn't want to do the grab bags as a kit because they're not intended to be a kit. They are intended to basically be rocket fuel for you to try new beads that you normally wouldn't try, catapulting you to be more creative and to express yourself in beading techniques that you may not have used before. You may not have ever used head pins before and you got some in your grab bag. Check those out and learn how to use them and to make different ear wires. I still love learning tons of different beading techniques. I watch different things from kind of professionals in their field and want to get my hands and try out soldering. It may not be the same thing that I do every day. I do a little bit of wire working, I do a little bit of bead weaving, but really the grab bags are a way to inspire you to create and to make more as you're working with them as well. So here we are. Okay. So next question too is going to be, so Carolyn asked, how do you attach a focal bead to kumihimo? So I looked before here, before the video, and I did not find a great piece of kumihimo that I thought I was going to find. So I brought back one of the necklaces like I just showed that I had already completed, and I wanted to touch on that to show you how you would go about making and adding a larger bead to another piece basically of a rope. Whether or not you're using kumihimo or whether or not you're actually using beading, how do you really add a focal point? So I think I'm going to do a YouTube video on this as well. But one thing I wanted to show is the idea that instead of making one piece of jewelry, keep in mind that when you're doing kumihimo or whether or not you're doing a netting, if you want to have a focal bead in the middle, basically what you're going to have to do is either pull all of those cords out of the kumihimo so that way you can slide a bead on that you may see some cord showing, or actually treat it almost like a bracelet. You can finish off the kumihimo piece. This piece I know is a twisted herringbone, but it gives you an idea. And what you can do is actually finish it off. Think of it as one half of your piece. So if you're doing a kumihimo piece, put your bead cap or your ending on that one half. Then take some wire, and you are basically going to be making a loop with that wire. And let me grab some wire to show you here. That if I want to take that wire and say I want to attach, so one way that I should have said is to take that kumihimo, that cording, that rope, and you just make basically a giant version of a bail. So obviously this bail is not big enough, this wire is not big enough, but make a giant bail basically, and get that so that way it'll hang on the piece. You can make it interchangeable, that it can come on and off. We actually have some really large hold tubed beads in pewter. You can use those to make the bail at the top. So what I was saying basically is that you're going to finish off your piece or your bracelet as if you were getting ready to almost finish. Instead of attaching a clasp to the end, what you can do is take some wire and a larger bead, which I'm going to pretend here because I do not have one right handy. You're going to pretend that this larger bead here is your focal bead. What you can do is a nice little section here. Let's see if I can get this wire. This 20 gauge wire is a little thick. So if I have this bead here in the middle of the project, and what I really want to do is make it so I can connect that bead to the center of the kumihimu cording. You're just going to take your pliers and basically make loops with those pliers going around. And as you end then to the kumihimu, and say you have a bead cap or say you have a clasp, this loop then is going to attach to one side of your rope or your kumihimu here. Make a loop on the other side to attach to the other side of the kumihimu. In the back of the project then you'll still have a clasp that you're working on, so you're not looking at it and thinking of it as its own independent one strand piece of kumihimu. You're going to do 2 strands of kumihimu and then link it together with a bead in the middle. So you'll still have a clasp on this side, clasp on this piece, and then in the pieces on the side here, that's where you're going to link it to the middle. So that's going to be the best method for any sort of rope or any sort of kumihimu or anything really in that necklace with more of a tubular shape. The reason, especially on something that is a little bit larger like this one here, I don't want to just take a break in the middle and say, okay, I'm going to add my larger bead. What's going to happen there, rather than finishing it off 2 pieces at the end and then connecting a larger bead, is generally speaking, the thread will stretch a tiny bit. Usually those larger beads are going to have a little bit of weight to them. They're going to pull that section down in the middle. So it's better that they're pulling and giving tension on a clasp or an ending or the cording right near jump rings than actually the thread that is included in the actual piece of the project. So if I want to have on a cording or a rope and I want that pendant in the middle and for it to be stationary and in the middle and not change, finish off the piece of the rope, the piece of the kumihimu, the piece of the netting before you actually go in and connect it to the middle. Treat them as basically 3 separate components, piece of kumi, and then your center connection point. That's the best and safest way in order to get that large focal bead. Carolyn, I'll try to get through and actually do a YouTube video on that, showing how to take some of that netting or some of that kumihimu and do that bigger bead. So that way you don't have just me speaking in kind of hypotheticals right here along the side, that instead of that clasp being on there, that you would have actually just connecting to that bigger bead and working with it as well. So we'll get to one of those also as well. So looking down here too. So thanks, Nancy, for loving the necklace as well. That was very much a labor of love. So this video will be coming to you in a week or so. You can gather up your materials, and I will definitely be wearing this one. And keep in mind too, as I was designing and doing this netted round rope here, I was reminded I was going to stick a different clasp on the end. Many times with your necklaces, they can be used interchangeably. Stick a nice bead or a focal clasp on the end of the piece, and then when you stick that on, not only do you get the look of the rope from the front, but I can wear it backwards and actually have that nice clasp and that nice rounded ball there looking towards the front. So that's where, if you're going to take time, you're going to take effort, you're going to use 25 feet of beading thread, you can use it and actually make the piece reversible. So that's kind of a fun thing with using a quality clasp. That was an Elegant Elements clasp that I also used in one of the bracelets too that we had done. So the pattern too for some of the different videos that I know people have been asking, when you're looking for patterns, generally speaking, it is so much faster for me to go in and actually have a YouTube video that I can create in an afternoon and get it done, sit and go home, work on it a little bit more, come on back. You'll notice in one of the YouTube videos coming up, I did not realize actually that halfway through the video, my fingernail color actually changes because it was a multi-day project. So keep that in mind too. Kudos if you can spot which one that is. But when you're looking at it and you're working with those different projects too, check those out as you're looking and creating and working with them. So one more thing too, the netting is definitely doable. So somebody said there that they're going to have problems with the netting. So easy. It's actually a netting with multi-hold round. So it'll be coming up. You'll be able to get the pattern after. And that's kind of what I was starting to say, was that for those YouTube videos, I can do them in one afternoon generally, or over a couple days from the steps of designs to actually production. So we actually have a really small staff here at Potomac Beads. There's just a couple of us that make this all happen. And luckily, when this camera turns off, I just kind of hand everything to somebody else and say, go for it and put that on. But when it comes to actually writing the instructions, they take a much longer time. We prioritize them with so many videos coming out based on how many views generally they get from that initial YouTube launch. And somebody had asked too about streaming this right to YouTube. Unfortunately, it is against the terms and conditions of Facebook Live to be spontaneous, or to be simultaneously rather, broadcasting this live anywhere else. So you may see this on YouTube after the fact, but that is why you are not able to see this live on YouTube, because it is Facebook's property, since they're kind of competitors in that world. So the patterns, once we know that they have a lot of views, those are the ones that people ask for the most, that you as customers ask for. Those are the ones that we prioritize. It's much faster for me to produce 4 videos a week than it is 4 written patterns. So we go back and we look at those as well. Some kind of finish that you can put on are clasps. You can, Joanne, you can look as far as there's clear nail polish. I would say you're going to use a top coat. Sometimes that may affect the finish of the beads, just like any cleaning project that you may use where it says pick a little sample piece and test on a little area. Go ahead and do that as well. Sometimes that shine, that luster, that lacquer that is on different metals may be affected by the clear nail polish. So clear nail polish is still the most cost-effective way to coat some of those things, making them anti-tarnish. Many of the coatings and the finishes actually have that already built into them. The one that is going to tarnish the quickly is going to be sterling silver. So keep in mind, the more that you wear your sterling, the less it is actually going to tarnish. Your body oils naturally will keep that from tarnishing. If you pick a metal like pewter, or if you pick a Zamac metal, those are going to maintain the color that they already have, and they're not going to go in and really do a lot of tarnishing. So you want to make sure, I say a lot of times that it's kind of like tools, and it's like most things in the world of beading and any sort of craft. You're really getting what you pay for, and you need to make sure that the quality is there, because you don't want something that is going to take you 6 hours of stringing and 30 feet, and then just have the clasp get ruined at the end. So pick that high quality and make sure to save some money for that piece. If it can be reversible and you can wear it in the back, even better, because then you pretty much get 2 styles for the cost of 1. So, and I shouldn't have showed you guys that netted necklace, because now everybody's asking about it. It's coming, I promise. We're going to try to get a pattern for that pretty quickly as well. So going back now to those comments, let's see here. So here is another one from last time that I did not get to answer, and this question is from Nicole. Nicole wanted to know, she said she's trying to make a flag bracelet, Acadia flag bracelet. She's from Canada, and she wants to make red, white, and blue with the star in blue. Should I try peyote, or would it be better for a loom? So one thing that I wanted to show you was that when you're looking at peyote, and that's why I had my little strip here of my peyote that I was wearing on my finger earlier. I'll find it. Here it is. So I wanted to show you with the peyote stitch. When you're looking at peyote and kind of viewing peyote, there is even an odd count peyote. So odd count peyote is going to allow you to actually have a center line coming down from the center. Even count peyote, you're going to have to pretend that 2 lines are actually the center. I have this carrier bead cover here, which is 6 wide. If you notice, if I wanted to do a pattern where I actually had a middle section, I'm going to have to use 2 pieces to do that middle. So to answer your question, you want generally to have 1 line. That means if you do feel comfortable with peyote and you do feel comfortable with odd count peyote, I would suggest using an odd count peyote rather than going in and actually setting up and doing the loom. The most efficient and quickest way, even though generally there's different looms and they have more time to set up, I would recommend doing this project on a loom. You can go in and you can get a nice line ahead of time. There's a number of different softwares too that you can figure out the exact size and length of what the project is going to be, because you want to make sure you know that before you get into a patterned peyote or a patterned loom. Because you are going to need a center, because in my mind the star is definitely going to have a point. So that's why I'm telling you and suggesting that you bring it back to that even number or to that odd count. Because even if I use 2 beads and kind of do that center line as well, if I use 2 beads on the center line, it really is going to affect the way that it looks, because I'm really not going to get a point unless it is a really wide bracelet. I don't have a 1 point. So either odd count peyote, which can be a little bit of a pain. I do have a YouTube video on that odd count peyote and how to do a quick odd count peyote, which actually uses 2 needles, so you can check that out. But when you're coming and looking at something that is that odd count, if you're not as familiar with odd count peyote, then I would recommend doing that loom. Another question that I have a lot, and I should have thought to bring back some of the looms, but we'll talk about them in depth at another Better Beater episode, is that I would suggest the Rix loom for something like this rather than like a jewel loom, because you're going to be able to see and lay out the pattern. It's just a better quality loom rather than something that kind of have a bend or a curvature to it. So when you're looking at the different types, if you're looking for a loom, whether or not it's the Rix or the Rix Mini, I would check those out as well for your options of doing that peyote in the odd count. Okay. So let's see here. Some of these comments too, sorry if I miss them and come back to them. Sometimes when I'm looking at them on the side and trying to keep up with the questions, they come in different order than actually they are presented. So I'll see some of the comments out of order, and when you go back and watch them, they actually have a timestamp that says when you ask the question and at what time. So then I can see, oh, they asked this question before that one. But sometimes with the live feeds and with the delay of people typing and with the delay of their internet, I get certain questions prior and before. So the Kumihimo pattern, Nancy, definitely not Kumihimo that I was showing. I showed the 2 different ones. One was the twisted herringbone when you're looking at it. So this one here was that twisted herringbone, and then this is a netting. For the Kumihimo, there are some great resources, and we have some videos on the Kumihimo stitch as well, especially if you're using beads. There again is some free software out there that you can figure out exactly how to do that Kumihimo or that crocheted look, and how to do the endings on that as well. So again, kind of halfway in here, a little bit over halfway, I usually just like to kind of tell you what's going on in the Potomac Beads world, as well as what we followed and what we talked about in the beginning, so that way you can go back and watch, speaking about some different ways to add focal pendants to netted or kumihimo, speaking about the beeswax on thread and how to condition that, some of the different ways to use and kind of alter the look of your jewelry by using quality clasps. One of the other questions then I too wanted to go, and how to use some of the grab bags, so if you got your chance to get some grab bags. Another question that somebody had on one of our product spotlights, and those are going to be viewed on our YouTube channel. Keep in mind too, if you have more questions or if you want to ask anything, you can comment right into the comments below or off to the side a little bit, and that will get those to me, maybe not in exact order, but I'll try to get to those as well. We're still catching up from questions from last week before we get into questions from this week, but I'm trying to get into the questions as you guys are asking them live. It's really an interactive forum that treats you as part of the contributors to the Facebook Live, giving questions and answering questions that you may have that aren't necessarily on our different YouTube videos that we have or other Facebook Lives. If you've never joined us for a Facebook Live, or if this is the first one that you're seeing, go back to some of the previous ones One, you won't see the funness of the new setup where you can actually see the hands as well. So that's a fun thing to check out. But on the earlier, we really have some great questions that people ask and great answers and great feeds that people will give in the comments to get you really into becoming, it's kind of our tagline right now, that better beater. And it might sound corny, but really that's the best way that we can describe what our efforts are through these different media channels that we use and through this kind of marketing campaign, is really to make you better at your craft. Because ultimately, if you're better at what you're doing and you're going to be able to make more informed decisions, realize and see what the quality products are that we have or that you want to use, you'll be able to review the products that we have, and that helps us to get new and to see where we need to improve as well, and really gives you a creative outlet to expand and explore your craft. I have so many people write in kind of daily and weekly about this being a new craft for them. And these Facebook Lives give a chance for some new beginners and new people to ask questions and get involved in a community, even if it's online, that they may not have access to where they live. The internet is a wonderful thing. It's an awesome age of technology where we can get connected to people all over the world. You can even see on some of the comments on the side where people are commenting from and where they're tuning in from. That would have never been possible a couple of years ago. But through this interactive community, you get to springboard your creativity and interact with all of these different people as well. So just a shout out to thank you guys for watching, and also join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making if you're not already a member. You will be blown away by the artistic talent that is in there and inspired to no end. I love that community that we have had the honor of really creating. So moving on to a different question that we had. This question was touched on last week, but I wanted to address it because somebody had another question as well. One of the more recent YouTube videos was for the herringbone jewel bracelet here. It is just a standard herringbone bracelet, and it is working with the ladder stitch here at the end and then kind of square stitching. I've had a number of different questions on this bracelet asking if it can be done with different beads, with one-hole beads. And I mentioned in the last video, or the last live rather, that there is the Grecian bracelet, which also has beads running down the middle of the bracelet, but it lines with bugles. There are tons of different options to line down the middle here. I use the Round Duo Minis with the 8/0 Toho beads. Miyuki beads, yes, they're going to look the same. The only thing that you'll notice, and this was the main question, is that the Round Duo Minis will slit slightly closer together because the Toho beads are just ever so slightly bigger than the Miyuki beads. We also have a blog on that if you're new to beading and want to check that out, as well as a video explaining the difference in those two beads. When you're looking down the middle of the actual herringbone jewel bracelet, can you use regular round duos that you may have in your stock? Yes. Can you use multi and different beads down the middle? Yes, you can use different beads down the middle. You can try your hand out at mini duos. Keep in mind, this bracelet is designed for a 4mm bead. So if you get much larger, you may have to change that up. I have a lot of questions with all the different videos that ask if different beads can be used in different videos in different situations. I would love to be able to test everything out and say, yes, definitely, super duos will fit in this. You'll have to add one bead here, one bead there. But really, again, I want these videos to be inspiration. Try it out. What can happen, you know? At the very most, you may lose out on 8 cents of beading thread, figuring out that the count doesn't quite work. Mostly you can actually sew back out that thread. You don't waste anything, maybe just a couple minutes of time to try it out. I would love to try out all of these things to be able to answer definitely that different beads can be used in different situations. Honestly, I just don't have the time to do it. And I think people learn better when they try and when they make mistakes and when they try and attempt to do it as well. Hopefully that's true in all things in life, since that's what I do with my kids as well. Make them try to figure it out and do it first before actually going in and instructing. You can also become better that way and then help somebody else out and say, you know, I tried this, and we have this in the YouTube comments. I've tried this with the round duo beads and it works great. I just had to make this one modification. So many of you may go, I know I do, to different sites and look at recipes. I read the comments and I see, you know, I need one more touch of cinnamon, or I use an extra teaspoon of vanilla. Same thing on the YouTube videos. Make those interactive, and if you want to try it out with super duos, try it out with super duos and give people your advice, and, you know, get it easier for them too. Again, doing that little pay it forward, giving ideas and giving advice to others. In that same bracelet, somebody wanted to know, and this went along the same lines as well, with some of those comments, whether or not, here is another question for today, whether or not you could use the Cheops. Interestingly enough, somebody also wanted to know whether or not the Cheops and the tangos, what they were as far as a difference in them. And in another YouTube, so all of these 3 different comments here were all on different places of social media. We had a YouTube comment, I had a Facebook comment, and then I had someone actually message into the store via our website asking about these different beads. Now, I went over in the Better Beater episodes kind of the different shapes, but somebody wanted to know about the Vexolos. Aren't they just a Cheop? So I wanted to show on these, and can you use these in the middle? So I have also some super Cheops, some tangos, and some Vexolo beads here to show the different ways that the holes actually go and are oriented in these beads. So when you're looking at a Cheop bead here, the holes are going to go straight through. So you basically think about holes on the bottom here. There's 2 holes that line up along the bottom. When you're looking at the Vexolo beads, the holes don't go that same direction. They're going to go side to side when you're looking at it. Then when you go into the actual Cheops here, you have the Cheops and the Vexolos and the tangos. The tangos also have the holes that kind of go to the side. So basically, can you use Cheops down the center of the bracelet? I'm sure you can. Like I said previously, it's going to be that they're all going to point kind of in one direction, or you can turn them so they're pointing in the other direction. But keep in mind that as you're looking at them and working with them, that some of these beads, because of their hole orientation, will not fit the same way that other beads will fit. I had another person also ask if the Eva beads were the same as Cheops, and could I use them in place of Cheops because of the different ways and direction the holes are. Keep in mind that yes, a lot of beads are done interchangeably. When you're working with different beads, look at the hole direction, and this is something that drives me crazy that my husband actually does, is he'll lay things out and say, figure it out. And I say, but the holes don't go that way. He'll say, figure that design out anyway. This would be cool. And even if he doesn't want to admit it, he designs some of the bracelets and will just kind of lay things out or draw images on his phone. But a lot of times, keep in mind what way the holes are going in those beads. So even if they're the same shape, the same kind of size, they may not be oriented in the same direction. So, and thanks Christine for saying that you used an 8-0 and it turned out beautifully too. So, Teresa asked, what is the best way to finish off a loom? I'm gonna have to copy that question and come to you next time, because we actually just got some new, you can use ultra suede. We actually got some new backing. That I think is actually the prettiest way to finish off a lot of your loom projects. We also had somebody ask earlier about bead slides, or the actual bead tubes that you can slide into the ends. We have 2 different versions kind of those, and through the Elegant Elements line, they have a bunch of those bead slides. We'll put a link into those, and then Teresa, I'll come back after in the next and have a little bit more prepared to show you exactly how to pull that off the loom and look at that as well. All right, coming down here too. So kind of just back one more touch. I get distracted by the comments on the side, so sorry about that. And get a little scatterbrained. I have about 4 buttons that I'm touching and trying to focus as well. So coming back just here, keep in mind that yes, to answer the question, I think Super Cheops would be really cool down the center. The Super Cheop, also for you that are wondering, the Super Cheop is different than the Cheop because it has a little bit of a pyramid or kind of a dome shape to the top, almost looks like a pyramid bead. They would be super cool down the center of this bracelet. You can point them in different directions and orient the points in different directions, but you most likely will have to change and skip some of the rows of that herringbone when you're looking at it. If you do want to try to change up that herringbone jewel bracelet to different beads, look at the different flat herringbone bracelets that we already have on YouTube. Look at those to get ideas so you're not super frustrated trying to fit a bead that's too big or going in and out, making the different herringbone stitch as well. Herringbone is one of those really forgiving stitches. That's why pretty much in every YouTube video I throw this bracelet into to show you that twisted herringbone, because it's a great example for so many questions that people have. Showing too some of the different techniques. Somebody had asked how they are going to take, they have a large collection, let's see here, I should read it rather than actually make it up. So we have a large collection of old vintage buttons that used to be used by my mother to sew. What can I do with these buttons? So I have a fun button necklace on YouTube, but I also wanted to show a way to kind of use the mass collection of buttons. We also have a lot of table cup buttons, and we had these produced for us because we loved the look of the cup button and the table cut technique. If you haven't checked it out, totally check out the different production videos that we have in YouTube for the check process. But when you're looking at the table cutting, it is a really, really super simple kind of amazing little trick that they do where they have a coating and then literally it's on basically a grinding wheel that grinds that down. So I took some of these cup buttons here to do the little example of how to hang them down. So I have the YouTube video showing how to string them, but this is also how to hang them down. You can hang them down as earrings when you're working on them using some wire, and I wanted to demonstrate that as well too. So this will be a little demonstration here on the side on this new technique for the YouTube video, that you can take a cup button, and this will be used in a future video too, kind of showing how to use those odds and ends using up the grab bag items as well. You can take some plain wire, and I have here some 20 gauge artistic wire. 20 gauge is a nice gauge because it's really forgiving. I'm just going to take my cutters and cut that wire for you. And then we're going to take the wire, and this is just about 4 inches of beading wire. Again, 20 gauge. I could be doing this with 22. I honestly could be doing this with 24 gauge. It depends on what you want to do in the project, which gauge you'll actually be using. Depending on the amount of holes of the button, you can use them actually as a link, where you take the buttons and use wire working to link them together. Actually, I have another YouTube video showing that as well. And for this one and this technique, buttons look really, really cute as earrings. You're just going to fold the wire right up against itself. Take that fold then and kind of crisscross it right along the top. From there, take a pliers or your fingers in this case here, and you can bend one of those pieces kind of straight up right along the top. If you want to, you can hold with your round nose pliers and then begin to coil and wrap that second piece of wire around that first piece of wire. From there, you can take your wire cutters and just cut off the extra wire there. You can top the actual button then with anything. Here I have it topped with a bead cap. This one I have topped with just a little bead. These are actually all going to become little dangles on kind of a cha-cha charm bracelet, but I wanted to show them because they're super cute as earrings as well. You can hang little tassels or things down from the end. Slide on whatever bead you want to right there along the top of the piece, and then go in and just do a regular coiled eye pin. If you do not know how to use a round nose pliers, make sure that you do this. A lot of you I know are bead weavers. Make sure, and I did this as a Better Beater episode on one of our YouTube Better Beaters, make sure you practice doing that coiled eye pin. It's so sad to see amazing embroidery work or amazing bead work and then sloppy loops. That's just a personal thing of mine. They're very easy. They take a little practice. Get yourself a spool of that 20 gauge wire and kind of just go to town, practicing and practicing and practicing. Wire working, just like bead weaving and other things, the more you do it, the better you get at it. You're going to kind of turn to the side, go over the top of the bead with those round nose pliers. I switch from the top while looking at it. So it's like a magic trick here on the side. I'm going to grab some flat nose pliers then, and you want to hold that loop that you're working on and go in then and twist the wire along the top. I prefer to use a thicker gauge wire when working with it, because when I'm thinking of something with a thicker gauge like this button that's hanging down, if I'm using 24 gauge, 22 gauge, I always want to coil the top of those eye pins. What happens when you actually have an eye pin that you go in and you just quickly make, that you have that round nose and you can just go right along in there and make that eye pin? Something as small as 20 gauge or even 18 gauge sometimes, that loop, unless you're really using super stiff stainless steel wire, that loop can open up and then you'll lose your piece. So I always like to do that coiled ear wire at the top when you're working with it. So we do have an insane amount of beads. So going back to kind of the comments here, yes, we have an insane amount of beads online, and it's really fun to go through the store, and also sometimes can be really frustrating when you're looking for one product. We have over 5,000 square feet of beads here, and beads galore, and a ton of beads to manage and inventory to manage here at the site. And I am blown away when we get orders in and we're kind of running around the store. It's really great exercise to work here, because we walk all over the store to find those different beads here. So going back to the clasp does not always sit so Margaret asked, she says here on the side that she has strung necklaces using metal clasps and noticed that in some cases the clasp does not always sit to the back of the neck and instead moves to the side. What can you do to prevent this? So think about that as being basically totally a weighted issue, that when you're looking at necklaces falling towards the front or the clasps falling towards the side, it's generally speaking that the necklace is not going to be heavy enough to pull down in the center, and because of that, it's shifting over to the side. Also, you have a bump right in the back of your neck here, called your spine, and that's going to throw things off to the side. Really, the best thing is going to be to concentrate on, when you are doing a necklace, think about the clasp style that you're using. If you're using a heavy clasp and your necklace is not really heavy, that clasp, as you move, as you work, it's going to fall and kind of shift to the front. You want to think about it really as kind of that engineering thing, that more weight in the front is going to keep that clasp to the back of your neck. If you have a light necklace and a heavy clasp, it's going to shift to the side. Depending on the design, and if it doesn't really have a center per se, you can actually do it that you use an attractive clasp, and it looks really cute when you put the clasps on the actual side of the piece. So build that in so that way it doesn't matter if it slides down. If you do have the sense where it's sliding down a lot, the clasp that I would recommend is actually just a small lobster clasp. The small lobster, rather than a larger toggle or an S-hook, that small lobster clasp tends to be pretty light, that it's not going to affect a lot the weight of the piece, and lobsters, generally speaking, will stay to the back better than an actual bigger or larger clasp. So that's going to be the best way. Same thing when you're looking at bracelets. So there's certain ones, like this one I have here, this leather one. I wear this and I have this tight, so that way my magnetic clasp, one, it was also an added challenge that I didn't think about. It is sticking my tools to this magnetic clasp, which has been another challenge trying to deal with those two views, because not only do I have that going on, but I also have, I didn't think about it, that my clasp is sticking to my pliers as well. But a lot of times with different clasps and closures, even for bracelets, think about that as well too. Prior to putting on and selecting the clasp, kind of feel your beads, gather up your materials, and see and evaluate. If you know that it is going to be a heavy clasp, with bracelets, generally speaking, when you're working with them, they will stay to the bottom, because again, that bottom is always going to be down, but they will spin around. Necklaces, again, it's really just a whether or not the weight is on or right. And if you make it that it is kind of a simple strung or something like that, it's not going to it is not going to really affect it if it sticks to the side, because then it looks pretty on the side as well. So it's almost like having multiples in one. So yes, note to self is not to wear a magnetic clasp when I'm trying to figure out all these different camera angles. That is, going to attach. So actually, here's a good product spotlight for you. This magnet is so good, it can hold my pliers. So there's a little shout out. If you want, we will even put a link to some of these magnetic clasps here on the side of it as well too. That side. Other side when you're working with it. So thank you guys too for kind of sticking with this and working with the whole 2 angles. I promise I'll get better at this and trying to see which way we're coming with and which direction we're coming to and coming at you, and kind of switching back and forth and trying to figure out how to switch back and forth between multiple screens as we're working with those different techniques as well. But I love this perception, and I love the actual view that you're getting, because you are getting that multiple set of views that I can use these as more of a tutorial sort, that I'm not just answering those questions verbally and linking to a ton of YouTube videos. We'll have the opportunity, as this becomes easier and easier, to actually go in and create kind of that up close version and that twisting, and you'll be able to see more along those lines as well. So as we get kind of towards the end here, throwing these in, we want to show you some of the new products, and we are 4 minutes away from being done. So again, I have some more questions that I know that have come up, more questions to answer, and we will bump those to that other to that next Facebook Live as well, which we're trying to do these Friday at 1 o'clock. One of the challenges that we have actually is that we have a retail store here as well in our headquarters, and that retail store we've really loved to keep open and to be able to have people in to shop. It is not really beneficial to our picking for that, but right now we do want to have the opportunity for people to come in and shop the warehouse, and the challenging thing is that we do these Facebook and these YouTube videos. So if you are looking and checking out the Hagerstown store, we are only going to be open on Fridays, because it is a challenge to be able to service both people in the store, service you watching at home and shopping at home, and to make all of these YouTube videos. But we want to make sure that we get kind of touched into everybody as we're working with them. That's why you don't see the store behind me as well, because last week it was really, really loud. People were going through kind of mixed glass, and that's great. And I don't expect them not to be really loud, so I came to a different section here at the store. That's why you don't see the beautiful Hagerstown store behind me as well. So just to touch on, as we finish up this Facebook Live session, I wanted to show you some of the different beads that we have new. We have so many new beads that we actually just got in that I can't even do product spotlights on them. I can, it's a lot of time, so I thought I'd show them. We introduced the Round Duo Minis here about 3-4 weeks ago, and we just got them in some of my favorite colors. So we have more colors now available. That we have the Lab Full, we have the Jet Bronze, the Hematite, and then this is also another interesting thing. Once a week, I get a comment from somebody saying, just to let you know, you have a picture on your website that I think is incorrect. It says Jet Red Luster and the picture is green. So to answer this question for everyone, the Jet Red Luster is actually a red luster coating on a jet base. When that happens, you get green. So yes, it is supposed to be green. I know it's kind of like that torture that we do for all of our coworkers when we're working with them. We make sure to hand them one order when they first start working and gathering orders with Jet Red Luster. So it just takes them forever to realize, hey, yeah, now you know things in the beading world, sometimes descriptions always don't match what you actually see. So we have the Round Duo Minis in those new colors that you can check out, and I'll be using them in some of my new videos. A couple beads that we've gotten because customers have asked for them, so we do like input from you on different things that we want to carry. We have the bead links, which are a 2-hole kind of curvy shape bead here. And then we also have the star beads, and the star beads are a star shape and have 2 holes going through along the side of the star as well. We also have a nice new collection of melon beads that we have in bags here. The melons have been really popular. I know Anna that works here loves melon beads, and every design she kind of throws at me has melon beads in it. They're just a fun kind of youthful design in that kind of that check style that is very fashionable right now too, with that masculine versus feminine. It has those ridges in it, and it's not necessarily a smooth round or a faceted round. A lot of them have the different coatings and the colors that lie really nicely in that corrugation of the bead. We also have increased the amount of drops that we carry, the different drop finishes and the sizes. Many things too were coming out with a lot of different varieties in color and shapes, and using them in a lot of the videos. And as we increase in some of these options, you can keep in mind that some of these things, like I talked about earlier with those different beads, they can be used in line of others. We've had a great response, and these are really cool. 2-hole daggers in our etched look. We've also actually already sold out of some of them in the different etch, so keep in mind if you see sold out, we're working to get those back in. Sometimes we get products in to test because we think they're cool. We don't necessarily know if we're cool, so we wait to hear from you and to see what you guys like, to see if our opinions match. So we'll be getting more of the etched in as well. And then rhombus beads, we have some newer shapes of some crystals that we've gotten in, as well as new sizes of crystals. And we're going also from the crystals that we have, some of them in strands, that's why you'll see them as closeouts, to actually tubing some of the crystals. It gives you a better way to store them. It also gives you more for the same price, generally speaking, and doubles the amount. It's actually about 50% cheaper for the amount. Most of you are getting multiple strands anyway, so this is going to be more than a couple strands in a tube. And it gives you, again, that storage. I love things in the tubes because, especially with the crystals, generally speaking, smaller beads, you're not using the full quantity at once. So by having them in tubes rather than little bags, it gives you a built-in storage. And then also, again, if you're not a member of that Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, there were suggestions there of what to do with those recycled tubes. I use them for needles. Somebody else was saying they use them for needles. Here's one to show you. And I use them for half projects, for started projects, for head pins. So there's a way to recycle those as well. As always with these Facebook Lives, if you want to give a little shout out, a comment, a thumbs up, that really does help us to know exactly what you want to see, the questions that you like. With this new technique of me versus hands too, it helps me to know, even if you write in the comments, do a little review of that. Do you like that perspective? Do you not like that perspective? And the ways that you think that we can improve these lives. We are always up for suggestions because, like you and growing in your beading talent, we are also growing and trying to do things better and improve ourselves too. Not only with beading, of course, but with the production and with the quality that we bring you, giving you different ideas. And really springboarding your creativity. That's what this is all about. So many people have come into the store over the years and said, you know, oh, I'm not creative at all. Everyone is creative, and everyone has that creativity streak. Maybe it's not, you know, coloring or watercolors or cooking, but somewhere in there you can find and love and enjoy the craft. This is one that I think is almost mesmerizing to work with. A lot of it is repetitive, a lot of it is therapeutic, and it really works for many of us, including myself, to sit down after an hour and a half of trying to get small kids to go to bed and just not think, and only have to count to 5 and do the same repetitive motion over and over again. So it really is a therapy as you're working with it. As always with the Facebook, with the YouTube, with PotomacBeads.com, PotomacBeads.eu, you can always like the different pages, subscribe to the YouTube channel, become a member of that Facebook group, and really interact with this awesome large beading community that we hope to expand and get more people to enjoy and realize why this craft is so awesome and so enjoyable for those. So actually, I think I'll start a little poll on the actual beading group as well, trying to figure out why you guys do it and why you got into it. It's fun to hear. It's almost like a story to hear what your first experience with beading was as well. As always with these lives, you can go back and watch them on Facebook under the videos for the page. You can watch all of those previous lives and interact with them. I still go back and look at the comments from earlier lives too, prior to starting my live, to make sure I didn't miss anything and trying to get back at those. If you did ask a question previously and I didn't get to it, don't feel like you're being a pain. You can also ask it again just in case I missed it. Sometimes if I have 220 comments to go through, I might occasionally miss one. So ask the question again and I'll make sure to try to get to that as well. So we are running out of time. I'm going to have to log off to get kids off the bus and then create some more videos for you to springboard that inspiration. As always, make it fun, enjoy what you're doing, and make the craft really, really kind of that therapy for you to expand your creativity and use that awesomeness of, you know, the design, the challenge, and the accomplishment that you feel when you're done. So thank you so much for watching this hour of our Q&A. And we may also post this on YouTube too, so if you get a chance to check that out. And if you are watching, keep in mind we try to do these live every week. Become a subscriber or like our page on our Facebook page, and that way you'll get pinged when we do these so you can catch them there as well. Thanks so much for watching and have a great rest of your week and weekend.